at the outset, let me thank Dr. N.K. Singh, who is a great academician, president of Jharkhand RSSBI, and his team. And I am thankful to him because he has given me this topic, which I had to study first and then present to you. High-risk type 2 diabetic must get beneficial drugs despite maintaining normal HbA1c with metformin. The crux of this sentence is that even if the blood sugar is controlled, the person has got the target HbA1c, one should give certain drugs which are very much beneficial as far as the ASCVD is concerned, the DKD is concerned, that Dr. Singh has touched previously. And I hail from Nanded. It is a very holy place where Gurudwara Takht Sahib Sachkhand is situated. And here, Guru Gobind Singh had his last moments in our city. It is a very holy place. I am very proud of that. And with this, let us start today's proceeding. There is a thing giving me more by all the physicians. They want more and more things from the drugs. In 2008, we had the aim of reducing HbA1c, and we all knew that after reduction of HbA1c, the retinopathy, nephropathy, the microvascular complications were coming down. But the focus shifted to the macrovascular diseases, particularly the CVD, heart failure, this CKD, which is also a microvascular disease. But the progression should be minimized. And for that matter, decrease in the incidence of myocardial infarction, decrease in the incidence of stroke, cardiovascular death, heart failure, hospitalization, CKD progression were focused. And to address this, there are few new things, few new molecules which have come up, and that has been very well aptly studied in the Standards of Medical Care in Diabetes 2021. And I think the root of this talk is in this guideline. In Chapter 9, Pharmacologic Approaches to Glycemic Treatment, and there is Standard of Medical Care in Diabetes 2021. There is point 9.9, which involves table 9.1, table 10.3b, table 10.3c, and figure 9.1. I am going to dissect all these figures and tables in the coming slides. And I am going to make this sentence very simple so that we can have some meaning out of it. It reads like this: among patients with type 2 diabetes who have, number 1, established atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, number 2, indicators of high risk ASCVD, number 3, established kidney disease, and number 4, heart failure, these patients, they should receive SGLT2 inhibitor or GLP-1 receptor agonist with demonstrated cardiovascular benefit as recommended as a part of glucose lowering regime independent of HbA1c. This word is very important, independent of HbA1c levels and in consideration of patient-specific factors. What does it mean? It means we can prescribe, or we should prescribe, certain drugs to prevent the ASCVD, the risk of ASCVD. Then the established kidney disease, one can slow down the progress, and one can prevent the heart failure by using SGLT2 inhibitors and the GLP-1 receptor agonists. Let us try to see the guidelines, how they move further. In patients with type 2 diabetes and established ASCVD risk factors and DKD, a SGLT2 inhibitor with demonstrated cardiovascular benefit is recommended to reduce the risk of MACE and heart failure. So here, MACE and heart failure, they are covered by SGLT2 inhibitor. What does the GLP-1 is going to cover? It is going to cover the ASCVD, number 1, number 2, ASCVD risk factors, and they are not demonstrated, these compounds are not demonstrated to have any benefit in heart failure. To continue it further, heart failure, which is very well taken care by the SGLT2 inhibitors. All the SGLT2 inhibitors, they can take care the incidence of heart failure or the hospitalization due to heart failure that has been given in these guidelines. And as far as the CKD is concerned, SGLT2 inhibitors in patients with an eGFR more than 30 ml per minute and urinary albumin more than 300 mg per gram creatinine, these are the indications for the SGLT2 inhibitors in CKD. If the patient is having CKD, irrespective of the dimension of CKD, whether it is having albuminuria or not, the patient should get SGLT2 inhibitor. That has also been given in these guidelines. What is the role of GLP-1 receptor agonist in chronic kidney disease? It can primarily modulate the albuminuria. It can slow down the progress of albuminuria, and so also it can decrease the cardiovascular events. These are all the guidelines. From where they have come? They have come by certain trials. And before discussing those trials, let us try to see what are the effects of GLP-1 agonist, the SGLT2 inhibitors, and when they are combined, what they can produce, what effects they can produce. As far as appetite is concerned, GLP-1 agonist, as you all know, it decreases the appetite. SGLT2 inhibitor is not having that much effect on appetite. On the contrary, in some patients, the appetite has been found to increase. But when they are combined, they are going to reduce the appetite. Body weight, both they reduce, and the combination effect is very much improved. As far as ischemic cardiovascular events are concerned, both of them are beneficial, and when they are combined, the beneficial effect is almost doubled. Heart failure events, GLP-1 receptor agonists, they are having null effect, but SGLT2 receptor blockers, they can improve the heart failure events, and the combination is also useful. Insulin secretion, what I have studied and seen, it increases by GLP-1. Glucagon secretion decreases by GLP-1, and exactly opposite happens with SGLT2 inhibitors. Hepatic glucose output decreases with GLP-1, and the ketone body production decreases with GLP-1. With SGLT2, it increases. Glucose uptake, which is insulin mediated, is improved by both. Diuresis and natriuresis happens actively with the GLP-1 analogs. Somebody had something to say, sir?
No, continue.
Diuresis and natriuresis are acutely happening with GLP-1, but they are sustained with SGLT2 inhibitors, and urinary glucose excretion and renal protection are observed only with SGLT2. And when these are combined, the effects also augment. So, friends, this is the first table which I want to dissect, and here the compounds which are very much famous are there. These are the recommendations from the ADA guidelines. Metformin is the first. At the second place, they have given SGLT2 inhibitor. Third place, GLP-1 receptor agonist. Fourth, DPP-4, and fifth, the glitazones. And after that, the older compounds, sulfonylurea, insulin, they come. And I have skipped the bromocriptine and pramlintide because they are not that much beneficial in our clinical practice. What about the efficacy? Let us try to see that first. Efficacy-wise, metformin is high. SGLT2 are intermediate. GLP-1 is also high. DPP-4 is intermediate, and glitazones are high. Now let us try to dissect further about the weight. The first compound, that is metformin, is weight neutral, but it has got potential benefit as far as the ASCVD is concerned, which has been demonstrated in various trials. But it is neutral as far as the progression of DKD is concerned. As far as SGLT2 inhibitors are concerned, there is positive effect on weight loss, number one. Number two, ASCVD benefits are observed with ENFA and CANA. The heart failure incidence decreases with all of the three. As far as the cost is concerned, which is very much concerned as far as Indian population is concerned, it is low at present in India. And there are many companies which are coming with the dapagliflozin, which is low cost molecule at present. DKD progression is somewhat made slower. It is halted with CANA and ENFA and DAPA, all the three compounds. As far as GLP-1 analogs are concerned, though the HbA1c reduction is high, the main hindrance as far as Indian population is concerned is the cost, which is very much higher. And the second is oral, the route of administration, that is injectable. As far as weight is concerned, GLP-1, they are going to lead to weight loss. As far as ASCVD is concerned, either they are neutral or they are having beneficial effect. Exenatide once a week and lixenatide, they are ASCVD neutral, but deglutide and liraglutide and semaglutide, they are having positive effect on ASCVD. They are neutral on heart failure. That is a drawback of these compounds. As far as when we try to compare it with SGLT2, the cost is higher. Only thing which is available as by oral route is semaglutide tablet, but these are very costly drugs at present, and they have got beneficial effect on renal endpoints in CVOTs, particularly when these CVOTs were driven by the albumin outcome, particularly lira, sama, and dulaglutide, they were having beneficial effect. The last compound which I want to discuss, last but one compound which I want to discuss is the glitazones. They are having robust effect on HbA1c, but the problem is of increased risk of heart failure, and there are some stigmas which are attached with these compounds, but they are having potential benefit as well as the ASCVD risk is concerned. And as you all know, DPP-4 inhibitors are neutral on all this front, except in saxagliptin, where we have got increase in the potential. And fortunately, in India, we don't use saxagliptin up to the mark as we are using the other gliptins. So this is a table which is having the summary of all these things which we are going to discuss in the coming slides. Let us try to see what ASCVD means in these trials. Any of these things, suppose they are present, then there is ASCVD present. That is the notion of many trials. Acute coronary syndrome or MI, stable or unstable angina, CAD or without revascularization and other arterial revascularization, peripheral arterial disease, stroke assumed to be atherosclerotic transient ischemic attack, hospitalization for unstable angina, amputation, congestive heart failure of NYHA class 2 or 3, arterial stenosis more than 50%, symptomatic, asymptomatic CAD which is documented by the imaging techniques, and the chronic kidney disease which is GFR less than 60 ml per minute irrespective of the urinary albumin. So these are the factors which label the patient to have ASCVD. And what is high risk of CVD? Men 55 years of age or older, women 60 years of age or older, in addition to the another traditional risk factor like hypertension, dyslipidemia, which most of our Indian patients are having, use of lipid lowering therapies, smoking, micro or macroalbuminuria, and the high renal risk, the eGFR being 45 to 75, and the UCI, the urinary albumin creatinine ratio more than 200, and the eGFR in between 45 to 50, irrespective of the urinary albumin. These are the patients who are having high risk of CVD. Let us try to see what this MACE means. MACE has got 3-point MACE, 4-point MACE, and 5-point MACE. Non-fatal MI, non-fatal stroke, cardiovascular mortality, they come under the 3-point MACE. 4-point MACE, 3-point MACE plus hospitalization for unstable angina. 5-point MACE, the 3-point MACE plus hospitalization for heart failure or unstable angina. So having
Yeah, you can go, I think.
So having these points in mind, let us try to move further. The hazard ratio, when it is more than 1.8, the drug is useless, it is to be rejected. When it is equal to or higher than 1.3 and it is less than 1.8, it has to prove the utility once again. It is called as non-inferior drug. When it is equal to or higher than 1, but it is less than 1.3, it could be marketed and it is supposed to be safe. And when it is less than 1, the drug is superior or protective and should be marketed. With having this knowledge of the terminologies which are being projected in many of the trials, like the EMPA-REG outcome, which was conducted with empagliflozin and it involved all the factors, the 3-point MACE, CV, death, the heart failure, renal outcomes, and all that. These are the legends for all these things. The 3-point MACE, CVD, heart failure, renal outcome, and all-cause mortality. CANVAS was conducted with canagliflozin, so also CREDENCE was conducted with canagliflozin. Dapagliflozin has got 2 trials, the DECLARE TIMI and DAPA-HF, and the newer gliflozin, that is etugliflozin, has got what is CV. As far as the injectable GLP-1 receptor agonists are concerned, liraglutide leader trial, the semaglutide SUSTAIN 6 is injectable, exenatide XL, it is also injectable, dulaglutide, the REWIND trial, and as far as the oral semaglutide is concerned, Pioneer 6 trial is conducted, has got the results. This is the first slide from the ADA recommendation. First table from the ADA recommendation which I want to project, and this is about the DPP-4 inhibitors. Severe TIMI, which involved saxagliptin versus placebo, Examine alogliptin versus placebo, Tecos saxagliptin versus placebo, the Carolina trial, which involved linagliptin versus placebo, and Carolina linagliptin versus glimepiride. Here you can see that the mean HbA1c reduction was intermediate, and the 3-point MACE, 4-point MACE, they were all non-significant because they were around 1 or more than 1. No trial projected it to be less than 0.8, so they are not significant. So all these compounds, they don't lead to any significant effect on the CV outcomes. This is a table 10.3b, which involves the GLP-1 receptor agonists. Elixir, that is a trial which was conducted with lixisenatide versus placebo. Leader conducted on liraglutide versus placebo. Sustain 6 semaglutide subcutaneous injection versus placebo. The Excel lixisenatide once a week versus placebo. Harmonia outcomes, albiglutide versus placebo, and Rewind dulaglutide versus placebo. And last but not the least, which was talking ADA 2021, that is the Pioneer 6 semaglutide oral versus placebo. You can see that the HbA1c reduction, the third last line, the HbA1c reduction was robust with all these compounds, and there was a beneficial effect on the CVD factors, except the Elixir, where the lixisenatide was used, and except Excel, where exenatide once a week was used. All other had the MACE hazard ratio to in between 8.8 to 0.8 to 0.9. It was less than 1, and it was consistently on the lower side. And you can see that the various factors which was included in the MACE, like cardiovascular death, MI, stroke, HF hospitalization, all they were on the lower side, less than 1 in most of the parameters. So these are the compounds which can be used for in MACE as well as in some part of DKD, because they have got the reduction in the albuminuria or reduction in the progression of albuminuria, so they can be used in such cases. But the problem is with most of the glutides, as far as the EGFR, when it is reduced, one cannot take lixisenatide. We have to avoid when the EGFR is less than 30. No dose adjustment is required for dulaglutide, liraglutide, and semaglutide. The caution should be exerted when initiating or increasing the dose due to potential risk of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or dehydration. One should monitor the renal function in patient who report severe GI disturbances. There is FDA black box warning because of the thyroid C-cell tumors in rodent, and human relevance is not determined, and that is to be applied with lira, albi, dula, exenatide, and semaglutide also. GI side effects are very much common to start with, but they wane off when we try to pull on these agents, and nausea, vomiting, diarrhea are observed. Injection site reactions are there, and pancreatitis can be reported in clinical trials, but casualty has not been reported in real world. So whenever we suspect that the patient is having pain in the abdomen and suspect that pancreatitis is there, you can withdraw the compound, and the matter is taken care of. These are the compounds, that is GLP-1 receptor agonists. Now let us move on to the SGLT2 inhibitor, and this is the table 10.3c, which has studied the trials which were conducted for SGLT2 inhibitors. This is EMPA-REG, which was conducted with EMPA versus placebo, CANVAS, the canagliflozin versus placebo, DECLARE TIMI, DAPA versus placebo, the CREDENCE, CANA versus placebo, and DAPA-HF, the dapagliflozin versus placebo. You can see that the HbA1c reduction is modest. It is not robust. It is moderate, intermediate. They are reducing the HbA1c. And these are the outcomes as far as the MACE is concerned. You can see that most of the compounds, except for the dapagliflozin, they are having a positive effect on MACE. But heart failure, when it is taken into account, all the compounds, they act very well. The renal dose adjustment is required with all the gliflozins. It should be discontinued before any scheduled surgery to avoid potential risk of decay. That is a
Recording in progress.
One should maintain. Decay risk, all agents rare in, though it is rare in type 2 diabetes, and risk before for bone fractures has been labeled with canagliflozin. Genitourinary tract infection, which are very much uncommon except for the fungal infection, and risk of volume depletion, hypotension. The person goes for all these things. One should withdraw these agents for or temporarily suspend these agents for a while. There are certain reports on LDL, increase in the LDL cholesterol, and risk of corneal gangrene is there with these compounds. But I have not seen these effects in my clinical practice. So let us try to compile these data in a single slide. As far as MACE is concerned, the SGLT2 inhibitors, they outscore all other compounds because there is consistency in risk reduction by the SGLT2 inhibitors. So also, as far as the heart failure is concerned, all the gliflozins, they are having positive effect on heart failure incidences, hospitalization, and as far as the kidney disease is concerned, they are already having a positive effect on DKD progression. So these compounds, GLP-1, SGLT2, they are very much beneficial in such situations. And the guidelines which have been given by the ADA 2021, this slide is projected here, which says that in patient who are having indicators of high risk or established ASCVD, CKD or HF, if you say that it is yes, then you should progress on this path. Consider independently of baseline HbA1c, individualized A1c target or metformin use, one should add any of these compounds. Suppose the patient is having ASCVD or indicators or high risk ASCVD, then one can go for GLP-1 receptor agonist or SGLT2 with which have got proven CVD benefit. And suppose you are not having a positive control, then you can add vice versa. Suppose you have put the patient on SGLT2 and the patient is not getting controlled, you can add GLP-1 to that. It will have a beneficial effect. And after that, you can select the proper compound to control the blood sugar if at all it is not getting controlled. As far as heart failure is concerned, the only thing which has been recommended is SGLT2 inhibitor. As far as CKD is concerned, DKD with albuminuria, if it is there, then one should go for SGLT2 if they are tolerated. And if albuminuria is not there, you can go for either of these compounds, GLP-1 or SGLT2. So to have the summary of this slide, this very busy slide, let us try to project this slide. ASCVD, you have to go for the HbA1c target as a standard treatment algorithm intensification. But when ASCVD is present, then you should go for either SGLT2 or GLP-1 receptor agonist along with the current management. If heart failure is there, SGLT2 inhibitors are to be prescribed, and in CKD, SGLT2 inhibitors are beneficial except for the retardation of albuminuria, which is done by the GLP-1 receptor agonist. So, which is better? Whether SGLT2 is better, whether GLP-1 receptor agonist is better. Let us try to see the pros of the two compounds. SGLT2 inhibitor, glycemic improvement is comparable with most of the standard therapies, number one. Number two, it leads to weight loss, beneficial. Number three, it leads to blood pressure reduction. It is having very low risk or negligible risk of hypoglycemia. Cardiovascular protection is there. It is generally well tolerated. So also it gives protection from progression of DKD. And most importantly, it is an oral treatment. And the very much important thing is the cost of the treatment at present in India is comparable with the gliptins. So these are the pros of SGLT2 inhibitor. What are the pros with GLP-1 receptor agonist? It has got a robust reduction in HbA1c as compared to SGLT2 that we have seen. Weight loss is there, blood pressure reduction is there. So also low risk of hypoglycemia, cardiovascular protection, renal protection, though less than SGLT2, but it is there, and there is very negligible risk for pancreatitis, cancer, or the bone disease which is there with SGLT2. The problem with cons with SGLT2 and GLP-1, let us try to see first the SGLT2. Increase risk of genital mycotic infection. In my clinical practice, that is a big problem with these compounds. And euglycemic diabetic ketoacidosis, but it is not confirmed with the large trials, but it is there. Risk of dehydration, hypotension, increased risk of lower limb amputation, particularly with chylomicrosin, one can observe the increase in the risk of bone fractures, and the rare occurrence of coronary gangrene, increased risk of bladder cancer, but this doesn't apply to the practice as far as my practice goes. Not recommended or contraindicated in severe chronic renal disease. As far as GLP-1 receptor agonists are concerned, it is the HbA1c lowering effect is less with short-acting GLP-1 that has been observed in many trials. GI side effects are troublesome. It is injectable therapy. It is contraindicated in family history of ME and type 2 cancer. Then high rate of worsening of retinopathy, particularly which was there with in the SUSTAIN 6, and that was the trial which was conducted with semaglutide injectable preparation, and increased risk of bile duct and gallbladder disease, but it is not recommended in or contraindicated in order to severe kidney disease. And the most important thing which troubles me in my practice is the cost. Cost of these compounds is very much there, and that has led to decrease in the use of these compounds. So in our practice, what is the better compound as far as Indian context is concerned? Oral route, the compound is well tolerated, it is widely available, we have got wide experience with it, it leads to weight reduction, it leads to durable control of blood sugar, the cost is low, it has got the advantage of prevention of heart failure, prevention of MACE, as well as it addresses the CKD issue, and the compound is SGLT2 inhibitor, which are preferable over GLP-1 receptor agonist. So friends, one can use these compounds in addition to metformin, even if the HbA1c goal is reached, because they have got a positive effect on these three important things: heart failure, MACE, and CKD. With that, I say thank you to all of you, with a note that this is never reads guidelines, but it listens to experienced clinician. That is a note as far as Indian practice is concerned. Thank you very much, and Sat Sri Akal from my place, Gurudwara. Thank you.